Hi, I'm Pro Surfer Mick Fanning. Tonight's program continues the story of one of my heroes, Wallaby star David Pocock. In this episode, Dave and his family reveal the inside story of his obsession to become one of the best rugby union players in the world. Now he is using his international profile to take a stand on issues that are close to his heart. But first, a recap from last week.
I try and get to Zimbabwe once a year.
He just loves the country.
I think since probably like 7 or 8, I knew that's what I wanted to do after school, was play rugby professionally.
He had it in his mind. He wanted to get right to the top.
Zimbabwe, when the boys were growing up, was just really amazing. But things happened politically that have changed all of that.
Mr. Mugabe insisted half Zimbabwe's white-owned land will be seized for black resettlement.
Neighbours of ours were ambushed at their gate.
He was shot and killed. They shot his son 9 times. I remember being pretty scared, mostly just at night. It was no longer home, and I think we were very much ready to move on and leave Zimbabwe by that point. Leaving Africa was traumatic. You felt like you were letting the other people staying behind down.
I think Dave just threw himself into sport, so that's how he dealt with it.
Dave had always been very focused, but definitely after we came to Australia, it became a lot more obsessive.
In my head, I had to do 450 crunches a night, or else I was going to get fat. Or, like, if I didn't do it, I was mentally weak.
I think Dave always had a sense that he had to be strong and had to be a coper, and he obviously had felt that his whole life was out of control because everything had changed.
When we arrived in Australia, I felt like, my eating and my training and all those things were something I could really control. I didn't have to deal with all this emotional stuff. I could just, stay focused and control things. And I could justify it because I wanted to play professional rugby. I wanted to play for the Wallabies.
David playing with the rugby ball as usual?
Dave was always on a mission when he was about 15 or 16. He really didn't get a look in. If it wasn't about his training, get out of the way, because he was just a bit obsessed at the time.
At one training session when he was under 15, one of the coaches told him he's got a poor left to right pass. And so he'd set himself a goal of 2,000 passes a day. And then he would beg my brother Mike and I to come out, and he would say just 200 passes, and we'd have to pass the ball back and forth 200 times while he ran along and passed left to right.
I just thought he was a dick.
I certainly now wouldn't have liked me then if I had to live in the same house. It was all about me a bit. I think he was 14 and we hired a boat at the Whitsundays, and David wouldn't come because he couldn't train. So the only way we could get David on the yacht for a week is we hired a trailer, took his full bench press, all his weights, all the way to the Whitsundays, onto the back of the yacht, and he would literally be doing bench press and all his gym on the back of the yacht every day on the Whitsundays. I mean, who does that? I thought I was doing everything I could to, become the best athlete and the best rugby player. Gain lean muscle mass but not get fat. I had a real obsession about not being fat. We couldn't go for a family meal because we couldn't find low enough fat food. So it was always a drama. So it wasn't, maybe this is a problem. We knew it was a problem.
I took him to a dietitian, and she was brilliant because she just said to Dave, okay, David, you want to maintain this level of training, this is how much you have to eat. and she was dealing with his nutrition, but she hooked into what was happening. And then he religiously stuck to that. So it didn't solve his emotional, psychological problem around it, but at least it gave his body the strength to do what he was putting his body through.
In year 11, he injured his knee, and it was very disappointed straight away to have that injury. But what he did over the rest of that season was to absolutely transform his body. He committed totally to his work in the gym. He was 78 kilos when I met him, and by the time he had come around to play first 15 in 2005, he was about 95 kilo.
Dave's last year at Churchy, he was one of the superstars in the rugby team. As a schoolboy, Dave got invited by the Western Force to go across to Perth, and they offered him a contract. And yeah, he left home and became a professional at 17.
Young.
Here's a chance.
Quick hands. Pocock for the corner. The Zimbabwean born, number 7, David Pocock, educated in Brisbane, Australian under-19, Australia A. And now his first Super Rugby try.
Dave was good enough and he was big enough, and his development didn't stop there, and he just so rapidly kept developing and he climbed the ranks really, really quickly.
How many 20-year-olds make their test debut in a Bledisloe Cup match in Hong Kong?
Getting the opportunity to represent Australia and play for the Wallabies was really a dream come true. That had been the drive for so many years.
Giving it now. Quick hands. Pocock slams it down.
The day I heard that he made it into the Wallabies, and quite frankly, I wasn't surprised. But absolutely delighted, proud, have been ever since.
Things were going really well with rugby and I was enjoying it, but having kept in contact with people in Zimbabwe, knew that it was getting pretty tough there.
Dave had been pretty open with me about his journey from Zimbabwe and what had taken place, and I definitely wanted to see the place, see where he grew up.
I met Luke O'Keefe at a church that I started going to when I moved to Perth.
Dave, when I first met him, even though he was a pretty young guy, was very mature for his age and a deep thinker.
I don't know, I think it was the start of me questioning all the assumptions that I'd grown up with. I mean, like gender and race and I guess class, a lot of it's pretty uncomfortable to think about. It's a lot easier just to sit in your box where you're right and you've got the answers. So where do people get water from in this village? We decided that we did want to try and do something to, as Gandhi put it, to be the change you want to see in the world.
In 2008, went on a bit of a tour of Zimbabwe. We saw a lot of things, and it was a culmination of, well, everything we've discussed, we're here now, things aren't great here. If we're going to do anything anywhere, why don't we do something here?
Right, Dave, welcome.
We weren't actually sure what we could do, 2 guys in Perth, but met Anani and Ngube.
When I met Dave, I don't know who told him about me. There was a day when he just bumped into my office with his friend Luke.
Started hearing about what Anani was doing out at Nkai. The community had been hit pretty hard by cholera, by AIDS, and a lack of food through drought.
I was starting to play for the Wallabies and felt like I could use that little bit of platform that I had to help raise funds to send over and help their projects in Nkai. Honestly, just for people back in Australia, I just wanted to know more about you. So Luke and I decided to start a charity and called it 80/20 Vision.
We've been able to see the community transition from what was, an intensive challenge for them on the ground with cholera, AIDS, into the next stage, and an endeavour to help people grow their own food and not be reliant on us, not be reliant on handouts. We're now seeing a push from the community that they want to return to cattle.
Of course, I was a bit scared about his size and also wondering at the same time when I got to know how old he was, that how could such a young man have a heart to support people.
So much of the history of aid and development is viewing people in communities like in Kai as, really helpless people who were starving and needed help from the West, whereas the reality is that these are incredibly resourceful, resilient people with a number of skills, and one of Anania's great talents is being able to bring people together and to share information and help people learn from each other. And we've been able to move with the community as needs arise or priorities change. So now we're moving into more of a value chain approach to livestock. And yeah, the community is really excited.
Do we need more?
Oh, that's heaps.
When I met Dave, definitely found him very interesting at the start. I guess his physical presence and his personality can be quite jarring because he's so big, but he's very soft and quite gentle.
That should go.
I had said to him, "Oh, Dave, so what do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I play a bit of rugby." And I was like, "Oh, great. And what do you do for work?" And he was like, "No, yeah, I play a bit of rugby."
Yeah, we talked a lot about feminist theology and her pretty strong critique of sports culture in Australia. How's that for a view?
I think that was one of the reasons we hit it off so quickly at the start, was because we were probably both at a similar point in terms of moving away from a more traditional Christian faith. Meeting Dave was great just because it was someone sort of, well, my age who was interested in similar things, I guess social justice and thinking about how our faith might be acted out in the world.
This is where I wanted to bring a couple of mattresses.
Oh yeah, sleep out.
Once we actually started talking about the whole marriage thing and what that meant, we kind of decided that we didn't really want to be part of some exclusive club that didn't allow some of our friends, should they want to express their love and sort of formalise it in that way in society.
At the time, Dave was living with a lesbian couple, and so we decided that while same-sex marriage is illegal, we wouldn't sign any paperwork as, a sort of act of solidarity with them, because they could have a ceremony, but they just couldn't legally get married.
It was a beautiful ceremony, and I think the decision to not make it official, it's deeply connected to their longing for justice, whether that be for people, whether that be for the environment, or whether that be for the animal species that fill this earth. There's a need for justice.
Today we're in the east of Zimbabwe. Dave's a patron of the Save African Rhino Foundation, and so we're here to see some of the work that they're sponsoring.
We got a group here that actually shot at us.
Bryce is head of the anti-poaching unit here, which is a pretty tough job.
We walked into them and opened up on us with a folding AK. They had a G3 as well, and we're lucky. They just, before we could go down, 4 rounds had come past.
There are these highly armed, highly organised poaching groups that are coming onto these properties where the rhino are, and they're hacking out the horns and selling them for, tens of thousands of dollars a kilo. And so in a lot of these situations for the scouts, it's kill or be killed.
And just your guys' support, just being vocal and supporting and gives us massive encouragement on the ground.
There's so few rhino left in the world. I think in many ways it sort of represents the threats to our natural world, and I guess the really skewed relationship that we have with the natural world.
We're going to walk him to where the guys are. They've been tracking all day and just protecting. So we're going to take David into where they are and then track the rhino with them.
Kevin was one of the best trackers on the Conservancy. When your work and your life depends on being able to read the spoor and the rhinos and tracking poachers, comes in pretty handy.
Move. It's all right, I had to do that. They won't go far, I just didn't want to contact you. Because they're amazing, eh? White rhino and a gull. Incredible.
So what did you guys do when they were that close? Were you just totally...
Literally just standing there like this. You can't do anything because they were looking and their ears were going. I mean, they were so close you could see the glass in their mouth. They were chewing.
I guess when we first met, Dave was on the tail end of his quite obsessive period with food and exercise. It just used to astound me that he would do so much exercise but then order a skinny flat white, and I'd be like, are you kidding me? But I guess the thing I noticed quite quickly was it was actually never really about the food as such. When Dave was stressed or felt under a lot of pressure, that would flare up, and it was like, if I can just focus on this, it kind of meets some psychological need to have some degree of control.
I mean, for me, it really wouldn't have been till 2012 in Perth. I started seeing someone on a fairly regular basis to try and work through some stuff, to try and make peace with that sort of scared 12-year-old Dave who lay awake at night, wondering what was going to happen.
Physically, though, he's a specimen, David Pocock. You know, at 18 when we first saw him at the Western Force, he was huge then. He's even bigger now.
The physical nature of David, he is extremely well defined. He's got muscles in all the right areas.
And it's the strength and the power of the man.
And he doesn't have an ounce of fat on him. He's got a lot of muscle and not a lot of fat.
There's the steal from Pocock. How good is he? How good is David Pocock?
2011 he played in his first World Cup.
Bounces out of it, Pocock, you freak!
And then 2012 became captain of the Wallabies, so it all happened really quickly for him.
Pocock, 79th Wallabies captain of all time. He's obviously loving his opportunity of leading the Wallabies.
By this stage, I'd been playing at the Western Force for 7 seasons, and Em and I decided that it was a great opportunity to move to Canberra and join the Brumbies.
We've got a player down, it's David Pocock.
Got through the first 3 games of the season, and in the 4th game, got cleaned out a bit off the ball and tried to step out of it, and just felt my knee sort of give way.
He looks in a distressed state.
But I guess it's only once you hear the doc say, you've done your ACL, that it sinks in a bit. So yeah, that was sort of the whole season.
Yes, we're going to see David Pocock replaced, and that is not what Australian rugby wants. But
it was a very significant knee injury, but it didn't seem to be a significant hurdle for him. He was very motivated to get in there and do the rehab program.
Dave's approach to rehab is professional, dogged, determined, obsessed, clinical, but he just does it and does it and does it. And he does it right.
You know, after going through all that 9-month rehabilitation, I felt great going into the 2014 season.
He just didn't have any luck. Second game of the season, he picked up exactly the same knee injury.
Is there a second injury of the same neck?
Yeah, I did. 350 days ago. You loathe yourself a bit. You kind of blame yourself for being injured, you know. If I don't know, if my knees were a bit tougher, or maybe if I'd done this or that. Yeah, bitterly disappointed, but life goes on.
As a family, we were just really, really devastated for him, and it was tough. And I think a lot of people did say, you know, is that it for him? Will he come back?
Well, we've got some Brussels sprouts there if you want some.
Yeah.
For tonight.
Yeah, and I want to pick that big cabbage as well. We bought this house basically because it's on a biggish block, but a very small house, so it would leave more room for gardening.
How many do you want?
Maybe enough for 4. And I guess growing up on a farm in the African bush for Dave has meant that he both has a love of growing food, but also of just being in nature.
After rehab in the morning, I'd often come and just spend some time planting or whatever, weeding. Em does most of the hard yards, to be honest. I'll plan and buy the seeds and sort out what we need where and do a bit of planting. She's the main weeder, wheelbarrow pusher. Yeah, she's the grunt.
I'm studying a Bachelor of Ecological Agricultural Systems. And so when I was injured, I managed to do a bit more study and actually get to a few of the res schools. So I really enjoyed getting amongst the farmers and meeting some people.
Sometimes they lay eggs in sneaky places. Over those 2 years, that was one of the things that we both really had to confront, was this kind of idea that you have that if you work hard and do the right thing, the universe will reward you. And that's actually just not true, you know. Just crappy things happen and it doesn't mean anything other than it's happened and now you have to deal with it. Is he your friend, Dave?
The second rehab really gave me the space to try and explore different parts of myself. I'd been asked to get involved with a few things that were maybe a little bit controversial, and I'd always just sort of hidden behind the thing of, oh, I'm too busy, I've got commitments, all those kind of things. But really they were, you know, something that I feel really passionate about.
People who you trusted.
And I think it came to the point where I just knew that I had to put myself out there a bit.
People don't choose their sexuality, and you know we marginalise the LGBTI community for what they are. I'm Dave Pocock from the Wallabies. I'm joining tens of thousands of Australians who are getting together in their communities to demand stronger climate action.
Brumbies flanker David Pocock told the referee he'd heard homophobic slurs coming from a Waratahs player.
Sorry? You just watched homophobic slurs? Yeah.
Geez, I'll tell you what, he copped a slagging yesterday on social media. It'll mean that he'll never captain the Wallabies again.
David Pocock has been arrested for his part in an anti-coal mine protest in northern New South Wales. The 26-year-old was on the equipment for 10 hours before being arrested and charged.
I mean, I felt like making a personal stand against mining our food bowl and the implications of coal mining in a world where climate change is a reality was far more important than rugby. If that was going to jeopardise playing for the Wallabies, then that's how it was going to be.
It wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. He had thought about it, he had planned it, he had looked at the consequences.
It's going to have devastating impacts on the water table and then farmland, surrounding farmland.
I was concerned. And at the same time, I'm very proud that he has the courage of his convictions to do what he believes is right. We realised that it would probably be something very controversial. It would be something that could potentially
really blow up in his face with his rugby career.
It's created a headache for the Australian Rugby Union and the ACT Brumbies, both of whom have chastised him.
From our perspective, it's pretty clear as well. He broke the law, therefore breached the code of conduct and was issued with a warning.
There's no point in having strong beliefs on something if you're not going to do anything about it. I personally was so proud. I was probably more proud than when he ran out on the field for a World Cup. I thought it was just the most incredible thing that he was doing.
Okay guys, like I said, my name's Senior Constable Lee Wrigglesworth from Bogabri Police. I'm formally directing you to unlock yourselves and come down from the excavator.
Dave was determined that he was going to be at work and train really well so that they couldn't, say that it had interfered with his training.
I'm not sure that he even went home. He turned up here ready to go for training at 7 a.m, rolled out onto the field and trained better than anyone else.
Pocock's well formed. Pocock has 5 points.
He came back in 2015 in perfect condition, both mentally and physically. I was amazed at how good he actually was.
And here comes Pocock against his old team.
I think having had 2 years of hardly watching any rugby and watching Dave play again was like a real shock because I had forgotten how much of a maniac he is. Sometimes I'd be like, don't do that. Your body, think of your body.
That is brilliant work from Pocock. He is killing them at the breakdown now.
He went through a lot of pain to get to where he got to, but it was inspirational, to watch him do it.
Good evening and welcome to Twickenham. Welcome to Rugby World Cup 2015.
The Wallabies had an amazing run to the World Cup final in 2015.
The breakdown again, it's number 8 Pocock. He is brilliant.
Defensively, we just felt that we were the best team in the world because we had David out there who would eventually steal the ball from the opposition.
Pocock in there again. Oh, it's masterful.
To win our pool and then be able to go right through to get to the final re-established Australia's faith in our national rugby team.
The final of the World Cup was something that a lot of the players had dreamed about.
Knowing that 4 years of preparation and build-up comes down to this, the most important rugby game on the planet.
We knew we didn't have to really change that much. We just had to bring sort of our game plan and our style and play it as best we could with all the things that we've been working on.
Pocock. And Pocock.
I went to that game thinking we've won the final. And it was only at that point, 2 minutes before the end, when the All Blacks scored that last try, that it occurred to me that we might not win. And then we didn't.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner, New Zealand.
After the game, as a team, it was quite emotional. There were a lot of tears and, just massive disappointment.
I'm still pretty disappointed, to be honest. I guess it's one of those things that you'll think about for the rest of your life. He was spent, he was done, black and blue, broken nose. And you just think, that is the warrior. That is what it is to be wholehearted, to give everything. I'm not too sure what I want to do after rugby just yet.
I guess we were both really interested in that intersection between wildlife conservation and community development. And Zimbabwe seems like a place that's ripe for that kind of work to happen.
Hopefully got a few more years of rugby to go. I think Dad's worked very hard not to be defined as a rugby player. He wants to be seen as a person who has a wide, holistic viewpoint on life and who has real opinions. When I was a kid, I just idolised
rugby players, you know, and I had my sort of heroes and had posters on the wall, and it was such a big thing to me. And if I can get young people thinking about things that they may not usually think about, or maybe issues that they would never equate with someone who plays sport, I think that's a really good thing.